Alright everyone, it's sprinkling a little bit, so, if you see a drop on the lens, don't be too worried. I'm not in a deluge. Noah's Ark doesn't need to come around yet. The compost pile is rotting down pretty well. I tossed it around, and all things considered, it's about a half a foot lower than it was initially, and it's not all due to compacting. You can see it's starting to turn into soil a little bit on the edges. I wanted you to see this though. Look at that, how much different that looks. Yeah, fuck the red mulch, basically. It's natural mulch time. All this stuff, once it degrades, it can just be heaped into the beds and composted down further. It'll just suppress weeds, and it's great. It's mostly leaf debris. And what you do is you take the stuff from the fringes of your forest. If you happen to have a lot like this, we've got a little bit of woods over there, about a half an acre. You take it, and you bag it up, and then you run over it with the mower. And then you get this, which is a really light, fluffy, leafy debris. It's got some twigs, some bark, random stuff in it. And there's about a half an inch or so above the red mulch. That'll suppress any weeds even further. The one problem is, of course, you have to munch them into the beds. Into the pathways around the beds, using your lawnmower, so it can spread a little bit of the debris up into the beds. The good thing, of course, is that will just rot even more and then compost them. We do have cabbages coming up. I wonder if you can see that. Yeah, you can probably see it. It's a cabbage seedling. There are also radishes, lettuce, and spinach in this bed. Over here, we do have Brussels sprouts. Let me try to find one here. I don't know. I've never had much luck with them before. But as for collards, yeah, you better believe that there are collards. Oh, yes. And I love collards. There's also Swiss chard. Lots and lots of Swiss chard around here. Those are in little clumps. They're all over the place. Those will fill in, over the next couple days. As for the carrots, I don't think any have sprouted yet, but I do know that it is viable seed. I am well aware of that, so that'll come up soon in those 5 rows. As for the herbs, look at that. These got a little bit of a dose of the kelp meal fertilizer, the Poseidon's Harvest, I think it is, that I'm using now. So they've really greened up just in the last half hour or so. And then some columbines here. I like columbines. Got some black ones over in the back. This is almost done here. I need one more bag of leaf compost, and you can see the hostas here have begun to come up. There's plenty of violets. Those are a nice deep-rooted perennial. They'll survive through the composting process. I put some compost in here. This is now a perennial bed, which is exactly what I wanted. You can see I had to take that limb off because it was low anyway, so now you can actually get in between these two, but I don't want any soil compacted around the base of the tree for a couple feet. These are basically just some lilies, some irises, the sedum that was already here, and then those pink bushy plants, I'm still not 100% sure what they are. And I removed most of the lilac except for this one, which is kind of scraggly anyway. I'll maul that up in the fall and remove it now. Right here, work in progress slightly. Those are asparagus crowns, 2-year-old crowns. I decided to space them a lot more so that weeding will be easier, because I really love asparagus. But most people around me do not, so I'm the only one likely to eat it. Here we've got the container garden. Put some peat moss in there with the various stratum. Again, I recognize peat moss is not renewable. I do not recommend its use, but I had no choice under the circumstances. There are onions in here. You can see it's just starting to sprout up a little bit. And then that one too. It'll take them a couple days to invigorate. Now, these beds are done. Each one of these has 8 bags of humus and compost mix, along with about 1/3 of a bale of peat moss. Again, recognizing that it's not renewable. These are tomatoes. 2 Cherokee Purple, which is an heirloom variety. 2 Roma, which is good for sauces. It's not a sweet, and you don't eat it on its own. I tried that once. Trust me, it's not a great idea. And these are peppers, actually. Seedlings that I popped in. 4 of them are sweet. There's also a jalapeno and a Thai pepper of some sort. And then there are 2 rows of turnips here where that stuff is. So those will be turnips. Probably get about I don't know, 50 turnips out of it. You cook them with steak, you partially boil them, and then you slice them into quarters or whatever, and then cook them with the steak juices, and it's about the best thing you could possibly imagine. This, though, all this extra coverage will suppress some weeds. Basically, I'm just waiting for the leafy greens to come up a little more. You see, there is some spinach. That's a spinach plant right there, I believe. And that one. I just seeded the whole thing. I just sort of cast them around. It's about, I don't know, 14 feet long by about 2.5 feet wide, because the radishes take up almost no space. I don't even like radishes. Those are those are for my mother, you know, not for me. I don't really eat them. Got some potted irises. Believe it or not, if you just pot them up, you know, I ripped them out of the ground. I didn't have room in the perennial bed because I want more room between the plants. I just decided to put them in there. But all the herbs here are great. Chamomile, chives, fennel, parsley, cilantro, oregano, basil, purple basil anyway, thyme, what else is some sweet mint, I think, a few others. I don't even remember. It's pretty great. But this garden is going to look way better with that natural mulch too, because that stuff will rot down and feed everything. I didn't even realize there were still bricks here. And some more chamomile, you know, the little crate planter. This has straw underneath. It's got about 2 inches of soil over it. So that'll be pretty great. Also, this wood on the side of the garden is not really for decoration. It's to help just a little bit more repelling ability against, you know, moles and shit. But look at the difference. The red versus the forest floor color. It'll take quite a few loads, but it's only been 3 days since I started doing this natural mulch. All I've been doing is hauling that out of the woods and mowing it. You know, you mow it to break it down, then you put it down, and then you mow it a second time into the actual paths. Anything that blows into the beds will just turn into worm food. I bet those night crawlers that I've already seen, which are much more prevalent than they used to be, they'll be 10 times more prevalent. As for these, I guess I got peat moss to spare, because I don't have anywhere to put it. That's after I put some in the flower beds too, so I've got 2 extra large bales of it, about $20 or $25 or so. I guess I'll use it in the fall. I'll just reapply. And again, I've got to get 1 more bag of leaf compost. That's literally all the amendment I'll need for this year. Everything else is already done. All I got to do now is here. There'll be more tomatoes and a single row of carrots right in the middle, which Carrots Love Tomatoes, by the way, a very good book. Now trust me. Then here on the ends there'll be a couple zucchinis apiece, and then the rest is all 3 rows apiece of corn and beans mixed together. It's companion planting. I'm not going to do that though for a couple days. I want to fill in, you know, the rest of these pathways over here. I realize, by the way, these can be shortened up a little bit. They don't need to be much wider than this, I would say. Since I don't need to get the mower through, all I need to do is be able to get the wheelbarrow in, and that's more narrow on the bottom. And I realize there are a few spots like that that aren't, you know, quite covered. But it's really, really easy work, and the weather has been perfect. This has been literally the perfect spring for growing things so far. The last project, before I end this, you see the contrast in color, nice green versus this, you know, somewhat disgusting red, I will admit, is these cinder blocks. All the way along, dug in, I'd say about 3 inches into the ground to help prevent some, you know, burrowers from coming into the garden. This whole side has to be done, and then the front side. Altogether, the cost, $60 or something. It's not that expensive at all. And then I've got to put a gate up, and I'm done. That's literally all that has to be done this year. But yeah, it's one hell of a garden. And this stuff in the paths will also help to resist drought. Like I said, it'll feed worms and so forth. It's pretty great. That bed there, you can barely tell the difference from the path because of the color. Everything else is perfect. I'll clean it up, I don't know. And this is the lasagna garden, of course. You can't see it, but below the soil level, a couple of inches, there's at least a good inch of a straw and leafy mix. It's very similar to this, only with some hay in it. That's going to be great. That's about all. Peace out.